Before we begin, a quick message from our sponsors. Your support helps us keep bringing you new sleep stories for free. You won't be bothered by any ads once the story begins.
When you're a maintenance engineer in a beverage manufacturing plant, you keep production lines moving and quality on track because there's no room for slowdowns. With Grainger's vast selection of high-quality motors, sensors, belts, and hard-to-find parts, you can get what you need fast and all in one place, so nothing gets in the way of getting the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories. Settle in now wherever you are, and let the room around you become soft and kind. Let your shoulders loosen, let your hands rest, and let your breath arrive without effort. Tonight's story will carry you to a quiet meadow at midnight where crickets sing in the silver grass and lanterns glow like little moons along a hidden path. There is nothing for you to do. The day with all its small knots and bright edges can drift away from you now, as mist drifts from a river when the moon rises. Breathe in slowly, as though breathing in the cool sweetness of night air. Breathe out and imagine every tired thought slipping from your mind like a leaf, released to a stream. The world of the story is gentle. It moves at the pace of moonlight crossing a windowsill, at the pace of a cricket's song repeating in the dark. You may listen closely, or you may let the words become distant and soft. Either way, the night will carry you. Beyond the ordinary roads, beyond the last sleeping village and the last pale fence, there was a meadow that seemed to wake only after the rest of the world had gone to sleep. By day, travelers saw long grasses, wild flowers, and willow trees by a shallow stream. But when midnight came and the moon climbed over the hills, the meadow changed as tenderly as a secret remembered. The grasses silvered, the stream became a ribbon of dim blue glass. Willow leaves turned their pale undersides toward the stars, and from somewhere deep within the root-tangled earth, the crickets began to sing. Their song was not loud and not hurried. It rose in tiny waves, bright and patient, as though each cricket held a single thread of sound and was weaving it into the dark. One thread began beneath clover. Another answered from the stone wall. Another came from an old oak stump, until the whole meadow shimmered with sound. On this particular midnight, when summer was full and fragrant, a lantern keeper named Mara walked the hidden path. Mara lived at the edge of the village in a cottage with a blue door where rosemary grew beneath the windows, and a copper kettle waited on the stove. Each evening when sunset faded, she took down her satchel, packed her matches and oat bread, and lifted her long wooden pole from beside the door. The pole had a curved brass hook at the end, polished by years of use. With it, Mara lit the lanterns along paths most people never saw, lanterns on branches, on mossy posts, inside hollow logs, and beneath arches hidden by ivy. They did not burn for hurried travelers. They burned for moths and field mice, for foxes in the fern, for owls returning from the orchard, and for rare dreamers quiet enough to notice. Mara had tended the lanterns for many years. Before her, her grandmother had carried the same pole. Before her grandmother, someone whose name had faded from memory. But the lanterns remembered, the meadow remembered, and Mara remembered enough. That night, as she reached the first bend in the path, she paused beneath an elder tree heavy with white blossoms. The air smelled of green stems, damp earth, and the faint honeyed breath of flowers opening after dusk. Above her, stars trembled between the leaves. Below her, the first lantern waited, dark and round, its glass cool with dew. Mara touched a match to the wick. The flame caught with a small sigh. At once, the lantern filled with golden light, not bright enough to disturb the night, but warm enough to soften everything it touched. The elder blossoms glowed cream and pearl. The beads of dew on the grass shone like tiny drops of amber. A moth drifted nearer, settled on a leaf, and opened its wings as though warming itself by a miniature hearth. Mara smiled and continued. She walked slowly because there was no reason to hurry. The lanterns had waited since twilight, and they would wait a little longer. The crickets sang on either side of her, hidden but present, their music rising and falling with the rhythm of her steps. Sometimes the song seemed close enough to brush her ankles. Sometimes it seemed to come from the hills, from the stars, from the night itself. At the second lantern, a field mouse sat on the mossy post, whiskers shining. "Good evening," Mara whispered. The mouse did not run. It blinked twice, then tucked a crumb of oat bread into its paws, for Mara had left it there the night before. When the flame brightened, the mouse looked briefly into the lantern glass, as if checking that the little sun had returned, then slipped down into the grass. The hidden path wound deeper into the meadow. It was not paved with stone or gravel, but marked by leaning grass, small white shells, and the soft glow that gathered wherever another lantern waited. Mara passed Queen Anne's lace, fragrant thyme, and a shallow pool where the moon lay still, except when a water beetle drew a delicate line across its reflection. The third lantern hung from a willow branch over the pool. As Mara lifted the pole, the branch dipped slightly, and the lantern chimed against the leaves with the smallest silver sound. Flame touched wick. Gold opened in the glass. In that moment, the crickets nearest the pool grew softer, as though they were listening. Then, from the far side of the meadow, a single cricket began a new phrase. It was different from the others. Lower and slower, with a peaceful pause between each delicate note. Mara stood beneath the willow and listened until the meadow answered, hundreds of tiny voices returning to the familiar pulse. She knew the old stories. Her grandmother had told them by the kitchen fire. Some crickets, she said, kept time. Not ordinary time counted by bells and shadows, but the secret time beneath things. Seeds opening, dew forming. Dreams finding their way to sleeping minds. There was, according to the story, one cricket in every meadow that sang the midnight note. If its song was heard and honored, the meadow stayed in balance. Flowers bloomed when they should. Rain came softly. Lanterns burned clear through the night. Mara had never seen the midnight cricket. It was enough to hear its song, low and patient in the dark. She continued her walk. The fourth lantern stood at the entrance to a narrow passage through tall reeds. Here the air was cooler and the scent of water was stronger. Frogs rested among the roots with eyes like polished stones. The reeds whispered overhead, long green blades touching and parting, as though the night were breathing through them. Mara lit the lantern. Its glow spread between the reeds in long bands, and the passage ahead became visible. On either side, droplets clung to the stems, each one holding a tiny upside-down flame. The crickets were fewer here, their songs softened by the dampness, but still she heard them guiding her onward with stitches of sound. Beyond the reeds lay the lantern field. It was called a field, though it was really a round clearing at the meadow's center. Soft grass, low blue flowers, and many lanterns rested there on curved iron stands, each one facing inward like a circle of patient friends. By day they looked old and ordinary. At midnight they became a ring of moons. She always saved this place for the middle of her walk. One by one she moved around the circle, match after match, wick after wick. Each flame rose small and shy, then steady. The lanterns brightened, and with every new light the clearing became warmer. Shadows softened. The blue flowers took on a violet sheen. Mara's own shadow turned slowly with her, long and gentle on the ground. When the last lantern in the circle was lit, she lowered her pole and sat on the wooden bench at the edge of the clearing. There she unwrapped the oat bread. The first bite tasted of grain, salt, and faint honey. She chewed slowly, watching the lantern flames settle. Above the clearing, the stars seemed especially numerous. Some were sharp as pinpricks. Others were hazy, like distant lamps seen through rain. The moon had passed behind a thin veil of cloud, and the sky looked brushed with silver. Mara took another bite and listened. The crickets sang, the lanterns hummed very faintly, though no one in the village believed lanterns could hum. The reeds whispered. Somewhere beyond the clearing, an owl called once, then folded back into silence. And then the midnight cricket sang again. This time the sound came from within the lantern field itself. Mara held still. The note was low and slow, with that same pause after it, a pause wide enough for the heart to rest inside. It came from near the 10th lantern. Mara leaned forward, careful not to rustle the breadcloth. The crickets sang again. Beneath the lantern, in the little pool of warmth where its light touched the grass, stood a cricket unlike any Mara had seen. It was no larger than her thumb, dark and polished, made of folded angles and quiet grace. When it moved, its body caught the light in deep bronze and green. Its antennae curved like threads of shadow. On its back there was a pale mark, shaped almost like a crescent moon. Mara did not speak. The cricket did not flee. For a while, they simply shared the clearing. Mara on her bench with the bread in her lap. The cricket beneath the lantern with its antennae tasting the air. Around them, the other crickets continued their song, but more softly now, as if making room. At last, the midnight cricket turned and began to move away from the lantern. It walked toward the center of the circle, paused, then looked back. Mara understood invitations when they were spoken in silence. She wrapped the bread, placed it in her satchel, and rose. The cricket moved forward. Mara followed. Across the lantern field they went, slowly enough that a falling leaf could have kept pace with them. The cricket did not hop or hurry. It walked with dignified patience through blue flowers and glimmering grass. Mara kept a respectful distance. The lanterns burned steadily around them, a soft golden ring like the inside of a dream. At the center of the field, the cricket stopped. There, half hidden by grass, was a lantern Mara had never seen before. It was very small, smaller than a teacup. Its frame seemed made of silver wire, or perhaps spider silk, touched by moonlight. Its glass was clouded with a pearly mist that moved within it. The lantern had no handle, no hinge, and no visible wick. Mara knelt in the grass. The midnight cricket touched one antenna to the tiny lantern. Then it sang. The note entered the lantern and seemed to remain there, trembling in the misted glass. For a breath, nothing happened. Then the mist cleared a little, and Mara saw a light inside, dim as the last ember in a hearth. She thought of her grandmother's stories. She thought of the secret time beneath things. She thought of seeds, dew, dreams, rain, and all the quiet arrangements that allowed a meadow to be a meadow. The ember flickered. Mara opened her satchel and took out a match. She paused because the lantern had no place for flame to enter, and the cricket watched her with bright, unreadable eyes. Then she understood. Not all lanterns were lit from the outside. She cupped the match unstruck in her hands and closed her eyes. Mara remembered every lantern she had lit that evening. Elder blossoms glowing pearl, the mouse on the mossy post, the willow branch over the pool, the reeds, the circle of gold. She remembered her grandmother's hands, the blue door of her cottage, the scent of rosemary, and the kindness of small duties, repeated with care. As she remembered, her breathing slowed. The cricket's song seemed to move through her, around her, beneath her. She felt the earth holding the roots of the grass. She felt the stream threading its way through the dark. She felt the stars high and silent, watching without hurry. When she opened her eyes, the tiny lantern had brightened. The mist inside its glass swirled, then cleared. A soft light appeared, neither gold nor silver, but something between, a color like moonlight resting on warm milk. It filled the little lantern without flame, without smoke, without sound. The midnight cricket sang once more. This time all the crickets in the meadow answered at once. The sound rose gently, not louder exactly, but wider, spreading through grass and reed, over pool and stone, into the willows, and up into the veiled sky. The lanterns leaned into the song. For one breath, the whole meadow seemed to be listening to itself. Mara remained kneeling, hands open in her lap. A deep peace settled over her, so complete that it felt almost like sleep. She understood, not in words, but in the quiet way one understands the warmth of a blanket, that the little lantern at the center of the field was the lantern of midnight itself. It did not need oil or wick. It needed only to be remembered. After a while, the cricket turned from the lantern and walked back toward the grass at the edge of the circle. Mara did not follow. She knew some doors were not meant to be crossed, however kind the invitation. The cricket paused once beneath the 10th lantern, its crescent mark shining faintly. Then it slipped into shadow and vanished among the blades. The meadow returned to its familiar music. Mara rose slowly. Her knees were damp from the grass, and her hands smelled faintly of matchwood and bread. She looked once more at the tiny lantern glowing at the center of the clearing. Its light was modest, barely more than a pearl of softness, and yet it seemed to make every other light steadier. She bowed her head because gratitude sometimes asks for a small movement of the body. Then she gathered her satchel and continued her round. The rest of her walk unfolded as gently as a ribbon unspooling. She left the lantern field by a path that curved toward the willow grove, where the stream moved slowly over rounded stones. Lantern light trembled on the water and broke into little moving pieces. A young fox appeared on the far bank, paused beneath the glow and lowered its head as if greeting her. Then it slipped away through the ferns, silent as a thought. Mara crossed the stream and climbed the small hill beyond. At the top stood the oldest lantern, the one her grandmother had called the Watcher. Small stars were cut into its chimney, and when Mara touched a match to the wick, star shapes scattered over the thyme at her feet and over the path descending toward the village. From there she could see Bellwether sleeping below, its roofs silvered with moonlight, its gardens tucked behind low walls, its road empty and pale. Mara did not feel lonely there. She felt placed. The crickets sang behind her and below her. The lanterns glowed along the hidden path. The midnight lantern shone unseen at the meadow's center. The mouse curled with its crumb of bread. The fox moved through fern. The frogs watched the water. The moths rested near the warm glass. Everything belonged to the night, and the night belonged to everything. Mara descended the hill and passed through the final stretch of tall grass. Seed heads brushed her sleeves with a papery whisper. The crickets were loudest here, though never harsh. Their music filled the path like water fills a bowl. She lit the last few lanterns, and each made a small room of gold among the stems. One around a dew-bright web, one around a slow snail, one around nothing in particular, which Mara loved best of all, because even nothing in particular deserved to be gently seen. At the last lantern, she paused. This was where the hidden path returned to the ordinary lane. Mara lit the wick and watched the flames settle. The cricket song slowed. Wider spaces opened between the notes. The meadow seemed to exhale, and she listened until the listening itself became a kind of rest. Then she turned toward home. The village lane was quiet. A white cat sat on a gate post and watched her pass. Mara whispered good night, and the cat blinked, slow and solemn. At her cottage, the rosemary beneath the window had gathered dew. The blue door gave its familiar soft creak. Inside, the air was warm from the banked coals in the stove. Mara placed the lantern pole beside the door, set the satchel on the table, and folded the bread cloth neatly. For a while, she stood in the kitchen and listened. At first, she heard only the small sounds of home, the tick of cooling metal, the settling of old beams, the faint brush of leaves against the window. But beyond them, very far and very near, the crickets were still singing. Their song entered the cottage through cracks and keyholes, through the chimney and beneath the door. It lay softly over the floorboards. It touched the blue cup, the copper kettle, the folded cloth, the wooden chair, and Mara's tired hands. She made a cup of chamomile tea, a gentle bridge between the work of the night and the sleep that waited beyond it. Steam rose in a pale ribbon. The scent was warm and grassy, with a little apple sweetness. From the open window, she could see the dark outline of the meadow beyond the village roofs. Most of the lanterns were hidden by distance and grass, but she saw one faint point of gold, then another, and perhaps the high glow of the watcher on the hill. The rest she knew by heart. She imagined the lantern field, the circle of lights, the tiny lantern at the center glowing without flame, the midnight cricket resting somewhere in the grass, its crescent mark tucked beneath its folded wings. Her eyes grew heavy. When the cup was empty, Mara climbed the narrow stairs to her room. Moonlight lay across the floorboards. Her bed was turned down, the quilt folded back, the pillow cool. She slipped beneath the covers, and the cottage settled around her. Outside, the crickets continued their patient music. The sound no longer seemed to come from many little bodies hidden in the grass, but from the night itself, from the dark blue air, from the stars in the meadow, and the lanterns burning clear along the hidden path. Mara thought of the small lantern that needed only remembrance. She thought of how many things are kept alive by being tended gently. A flame, a path, a story, a kindness, a quiet song at midnight. Her breathing deepened. The meadow, too, seemed to breathe. Lantern flames leaned and steadied. Dew gathered on clover leaves. The stream moved over its stones. The fox curled beneath a fern. The mouse slept with full paws. Moths folded their wings like little gray cloaks. Frogs rested in the cool mud. And at the center of the field, the midnight lantern held its soft, pearl-colored glow. The crickets sang more slowly now. Or perhaps Mara was hearing them from farther away, Their notes drifted apart, leaving spaces of deep velvet silence between them. In those spaces, there was no need to think, no need to remember anything clearly, no need to follow the path any farther. The night knew the way. The lanterns knew the way. Sleep came like mist from the meadow, rising gently, touching the windowsill, the blanket, the pillow, the quiet face of the lantern keeper. It came without hurry. It came as something familiar and kind, something that had been waiting patiently all evening. Mara let go. The last thing she heard was the midnight cricket singing one low, tender note beneath all the others. Then even that softened. The meadow rested. The lanterns glowed, and the night held everything. Now the story grows quieter. The path fades into silver grass. The cottage grows still. The small lantern at the center of the field keeps shining, but softly, softly, as though its light has become part of a dream. Breath by breath, the world loosens. The crickets are farther away now, singing beyond the window, beyond the meadow, beyond the edge of thought. Their gentle rhythm asks for nothing. It only rocks the dark, note after note, pause after pause. The lanterns grow dimmer in the distance. The grasses lean together. The stream murmurs in its sleep. And somewhere, held safely in the hush of midnight, a small pearl of light remains. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well.